158 of the Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, February 16th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir. You seem tired.
Jim, I am tired. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I actually got to bed pretty early last night. Um, you know, generally a night owl, but I've been moving away from that a little bit, getting more sleep filled nights, so that's pretty nice. But other than that, I'm ready to talk more outfielders. I don't know if we're going to compare everybody to Brian Reynolds today or not, but we can try.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely could try. I'm hoping that we get deep enough to get to my favorite tier of today, which is the Chris Bryant tier.
Okay, excellent. We will
Yeah.
see if we can get to that. Let's go ahead and get started here. Not a whole lot of news to talk about. I did want to mention one thing that did come across yesterday, but it was after we were already deep into the outfielders. I didn't really want to circle back to the O's and their pitching injuries. Apparently, they're looking at Jesus Luzardo. Now, it's just a rumor. We don't know anything that's going on there, but obviously with Bradish's big injury and then Means, kind of being pushed back, all of a sudden they might be looking at a second trade. This makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because they could go out, they could make a Luzardo or a Cease trade and still not really touch their, or not, I don't want to say not touch their farm system, but not like damage it in any way. Do you think that they should be jumping for a Luzardo deal?
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, like he is one of those pitchers that can be really, really good when he's on. And when he's not on, he gives up too many home runs. Well, guess what? In that park, it's harder to give up too many home runs. So, especially as a lefty. So, yeah, I mean, I would be pretty excited. I'd probably be as psyched on Luzardo as I've ever been because I've never really been much of a Luzardo guy because of the inconsistency. And like you said, like they've just got all this depth to trade from in their minor leagues. To me, the question is, what does Miami want back, right?
Yeah, and it'd be big for sure for obvious reasons, and I don't blame them for that. But we're always trying to find hitting for them, a hitting for pitching trade because they are such a good fit for it. The Marlins are, and I think we've even talked about how these two teams line up well before the Burns trade back in the fall when we were talking potential trades. So there's a lot of ways it could go. We don't need to dive too deeply into it just because it's just a passing rumor right now. But I do think it is pretty interesting. And if the O's go out and make a big pitching move, that would make a lot of sense to me because it's not like, say they got amazing news on Bradish and everything, kind of came back better and they brought on Luzardo. That's fine because, no offense, but Cole Irvin doesn't have to have a starting role. Dean Kramer doesn't have to be in the rotation. They can be rotation depth. So I think it'd be really interesting. And like I said, given the depth of their farm system, the O's could give 2-3 quality guys and still have a wonderful system. So we'll keep tabs on that for sure. But let's dive back into outfield and let's start with an Oriole here. Let's look at a power focused here. It's a big range here. Almost 150, almost 200 picks worth of range. But we got Anthony Santander at 142, Jorge Soler, who just signed with San Francisco, so we definitely want to talk about that at 168. Kerry Carpenter 225, Max Kepler 283, Will Benson 305, Brent Rooker 307, Matt Wallner 310. Giancarlo Stanton 320 and Luke Raley 330. So really running a long range here. You got much bigger expectations out of Santander and Soler being within the top 170 picks. So let's start with them. Santander's a favorite of yours for a while now. He seems to be pretty established as somebody that you can draft and pencil in, upper 20s homers, low 30s, maybe 33 2022, 28 last year. Solid runs and ribbies because of this ball club. He's still in on your boy Santander.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're getting, like you said, high 20s, low 30s, home runs.
Just penciling him in for the same sort of stuff, right?
Pretty much. I mean, maybe a little bit of some average downside, but because we've seen 240 and 241 the last kind of 2 years, but the
the 2 years before last year, excuse me, 257 the year before that. Last year.
257, yeah. His XBA last year was 235.
Yeah.
So I think the previous years are probably more likely to what we see as like a 240 batting average, but if you're looking for affordable power, that you kind of just pencil in, like I don't think you can go wrong with Santander.
I generally don't either, but then I kind of look at some of the rest of this tier and I wonder if maybe I should just wait and get kind of the cheaper versions of him, especially those guys in the 300s there. Um,
I don't think that that is necessarily a bad way of looking at it. The
he's on the
only I
better team.
And I think he's just safer. He's shown over the course of the last 2 years, like you can actually pencil him in. Whereas, like, we're going to talk about Brent Rooker
Yeah,
and Matt Wallner. Like, their track records aren't very good. Like,
true.
right? Like, they could completely fall off and kind of just go back into being pumpkins. Whereas Santander, as long as he's healthy, I think he's going to just be fine.
That's fair. So you are paying for some safety there, and again, quality team. Not that Wallner isn't as well. I think the Twins are solid, but of course Rooker is not. So his runs and ribbies could be challenged there. Let's talk Soler. Signs with your ball club out there in San Francisco. Pick 168. I'm not too worried about the park. First off, it doesn't crush righties anywhere near as much as it does lefties. Soler has big boy power. His breakout year, when he hit a billion homers, was in Kansas City. So I'm really, really not that concerned that he's going to struggle. And last year he hit 36 in Miami. Like this guy thrives. Can we get this guy in a good park once just to see what could happen? He hit 48 in KC, 36 in Miami, and he's going to go out to San Francisco and probably clock another 30. It all comes down to health with him, right? What do you think of Soler at 168 with your Giants?
I mean, I think you nailed it. It just comes down to health. I'm glad my Giants were finally able to find a middle or the bat to sign there.
Yeah.
It's like it's been like 20 years since we had one of those. So yeah, I mean, I think Soler is gonna be fine in San Francisco. I think it really, really helps out the rest of that offense just to have a guy who can drive in runs. It is all about health, but my assumption would be that Soler is just going to DH for at least for the vast majority
Absolutely.
of time.
Yeah.
Just
The
got to keep him healthy.
occasional
Yeah.
outfield start to give somebody a day off or something, but there is no reason that Jorge Soler should be in the outfield for any reasonable number of games. That would not make a lot of sense to me. Let him just cook as the DH. He played 32 games in right field last year for Miami, 102 at DH. A similar split, maybe even a
Yeah.
sharper split.
I would think. I mean, the only reason why they might not is just because they've got a few guys who on the team where it's like, hey, you might want to hide Michael Conforto at DH,
Hmm.
occasionally. But for the most part, yeah, I think that there's no reason to put Soler out in the out. I mean, he's just a bad outfielder, and then he gets hurt, and so
You
there's
don't want
just
to get him hurt.
no reason to have him out there.
You cool with this price point?
Yeah,
168 for Soler? Yeah, I got no
and
problems
if
with it.
anything, it might drop. Usually, guys rise just on the heels of signing, but
Hmm.
uh, considering he's going to be in San Francisco, which is a bad park, and the team around him isn't very good either, people may just go, "Well, I don't want Soler now." I mean, remember when like Chris Davis was traded to the A's and everybody started freaking out? Oh no, he's in the Coliseum. Like I said, his power play is anywhere, so I'm not super worried about that. So for me, like I think Soler is a pretty good price right now, and I could see it even going down.
Yeah, that would not surprise me either. I would take that discount if it came. Kerry Carpenter, 225 for my Tigers. I was a big fan of him last year. Things connected. Now, I mentioned, with Santander, aren't some of these late guys kind of, maybe similar versions of him? I actually think this is much more prominent with Carpenter. As much as I like him, at 225, shouldn't we just be taking the Rookers and the Wallners 75, 80 picks later to do the same thing? Or even my boy Luke Rayleigh at pick 330. Like, I love Carpenter. I'm excited about seeing him again. And I hope that maybe he can start to get some of those verse lefty plate appearances just to kind of help the volume. But I don't think I'm paying the premium. I think this is a guy that I move off of because the price has risen a little too high for me. What do you think about Kerry Carpenter coming off of his breakout season?
When you first started kind of saying what you were saying about Carpenter, and just pivoting to other guys that are a little bit lower, I thought what you were saying was instead of taking Santander, you should just take Carpenter.
That's fair. Like, but then scale
Yeah,
that down even that you start to kind of keep making that that dip though, right? Like instead of Santander at 142, how about Carpenter at 225? But then maybe instead of Carpenter at 225, why not Rooker, Wallner, Stanton, Rayleigh?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel better about Carpenter's path to playing time than a lot of those guys below him. I feel like his skills are a little bit more unimpeachable, to be quite honest. Like, I mean, above average zone contact, a 12.5% swinging strike rate tells me that the 25% strikeout rate is probably legitimate. Um, I think he's got power to all fields. I actually really like Carpenter. He's been one of my more drafted players this year.
Okay. I mean, I
So
like the cosign. Again, I was a huge fan of him last year. I'm just worried. You know what I look at though too? I will say, 459 plate appearances last year. That wasn't all platooning though. He missed
yeah,
some time due to injury. So if we can get him to the 550-ish range, tack on maybe another 100, then we can still get our 25. And then you can make a case. This is one thing we forget sometimes with the platoons. Oh, we want that extra volume. Well, sometimes the trade off is, hey, I'll give back that volume, but the batting average is going to be higher because he's not going to have all those plate appearances against lefties that might bring his batting average down. And Kerry Carpenter hit 278 last year. So
we
again, I
don't
don't.
have him platooning either
What's that?
because we don't have Fangraphs. Russ Resource doesn't have him platooning.
Yeah, because there's no obvious fit there.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
like
think Matt Vierling is like a clear must platoon with Kerry Carpenter type guy.
yeah, so I think there's actually a pretty good chance he gets the 600 plus plate appearances, and that's what I have him projected for. I have him projected for I believe it's 600 plate appearances and 27 home runs. Like
Okay.
I think he is Santander, just a little bit cheaper.
What kind of average you got with that then if he's playing 600, including against lefties?
Let me bring it up.
Because he also had the little 31 game sample in 2022 for Kerry Carpenter, and he hit 252 during that, and so
I
his composite average is 273. Go ahead.
I have 258.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, you know what? I think maybe you brought me back in a little bit on my guy. I love Carpenter. I really want to be in. I just was looking at these other guys, and I'm like, well, maybe I should just be waiting. Honestly, it could be a double up situation too. I'd be fine taking Carpenter and Matt Wallner, right? You need power. I'll always just kind of keep stacking power. You can never have too much. So maybe it's a situation where I just get both. I will be kind of keeping an eye on in spring training, like if they are going to let him get a chance at 600 plate appearances, then Carpenter does become a bit more appealing. I think I was judging him a little too harshly on the 459 from last year, forgetting that part of that was injury, not just that he was
Mhm.
platooning. So okay, you've brought me back in a bit on my guy. It's always that weird balance of like when you're super in on a guy one year, he hits, you feel great about it, but then do you stay bought in when the price really jumps?
Mhm.
And I'm usually a lot of times I'm like, yes, this is a guy I like. I'm sticking with him. I've been a little bit more in between on Carpenter this year, but you're pushing me toward sticking with him. Let's talk about another twin before we get to Matt Wallner. Max Kepler, favorite of mine for several years now, but I'm kind of off this started before this year, but like we used to look at his BABIPs and say, well, all he needs is some BABIP luck and he can have a good batting average, this, that, and the other. And it was never coming to fruition because what he does is not conducive to a high BABIP. It wasn't that he was unlucky. It was mostly that he's a fly ball guy. And the more fly balls you have, the lower your BABIP's going to be generally. But he did pop 24 homers, his highest since the 2019 rabbit ball breakout of 36. He did hit 260, so the average actually did jump up despite only a 288 BABIP, although I say only, and that is a career high. So that is still like, yes, if his BABIP goes up, so will his average, but we can't really expect Max Kepler to be in the 300s range that is league average because that's just not his game. And then volume remains a question. He hasn't had 500 plus plate appearances since the 2019 season, but 491 last year. Quality year overall. I'm still a fan. I think the market prices him fairly. But what do you think of from Max Kepler? Are we carbon copying this past year? Do you think the rabbit ball 36 homers is at all possible, or was it just rabbit ball? Or are you down on him? Where are you at on Max Kepler?
Man, I just can't quit Max Kepler. He's been like one of my favorite dudes forever, and
Yeah, he's been a
uh,
show fave.
Like, I kind of just wish he would get traded to a different team because I just feel like he maybe a different team could just unlock something for him because I do see a guy who has the potential to be like 30-10 if everything broke right. That being said, yeah, I think a carbon copy of last year is pretty fair. Maybe you give back some of the batting average because, like you said, he ran a 288 BABIP, and his career is 253. So I would expect it comes back down at least 10. The batting average comes down at least 10 points, maybe even 15. So, but I do think you're going to get like around 20 home runs and some chip in stolen bases and decent counting categories. It's just not the most appealing from like an upside perspective. I think the floor is really safe. He's a great defender. They're gonna play him every day, especially with all the injury issues in Minnesota. Like I don't think, and that he's not a part of. I don't think that he's gonna lose playing time at any point. But a lot of times when you're at this point in the draft, after like 250, you start really going, okay, who are the guys that can start winning me leagues, not who are the guys who are just gonna like, keep my team afloat.
Hmm.
And so like I know a lot of people are gonna pass on the Max Keplers of the world for a lot of the other guys we're gonna talk about in this tier.
I mean, that's fine if they want to do that. Like I will say bought in on Max Kepler. I'm with you. This guy just can't quit. So
Yeah.
um I'll take last year. Just give me that
Mhm.
again. 20 something with a 260 average. That would be the best part. Actually, I'm gonna budget for 245. I'm going to plan for that, I should say, because he's a 236 career hitter, so maybe I should even be lower. But I do believe he can be closer to the 245. And if I get the 260 from Kepler, okay, great. But let's not put that on him because that is a high average for him. All right, Will Benson maybe could have been in the power speed category that we have coming up later because he does run sometimes. But I went for the power focus because that is, I think, the main draw of Will Benson. Dude can absolutely hit tanks. Did have 19 steals, though. So, again, might be a better fit for that category. The categories aren't the biggest deal, though. 11, 19 in 108 games with a 275 average. He was excellent. I will say I've been impressed with the community not overrating him at pick 305 though, because I think everyone sees that 31% K rate, knows that there's platoon risk, and says let's not play the extrapolation game, right? We always talk about not doing that and being very careful with it. I think the market isn't doing that with Will Benson, and that's the right move. But what can we see for an encore from him? And crazy, but couldn't a team like Cleveland use a guy like this in their outfield?
Poor Cleveland.
No, no,
Um,
no, 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 not poor Cleveland. No one forced them to trade Nolan Jones and Will Benson when they have no freaking outfielders. No, don't say poor Cleveland. Anyway, talk about Will Benson in Cincinnati where he's cooking lately.
Uh, it would be great if Bradley Zimmer has like a breakout year in Colorado. Uh, uh, yeah, it's funny that we have him in the power focus tier because like he just steals bases. But uh,
223 ISO. He's got major
yeah,
power.
he does have major power. The question is, does he have major playing time? And I think there is like a lot of risk to Benson's profile. We saw the 31% strikeout rate. And that's really backed up by 79% zone contact, right? With 85% being league average. And part of the problem is, like he gets a little bit passive at times. Like he doesn't swing outside of the zone, which is great, but sometimes he doesn't swing inside the zone. Though it's not quite as bad as trying to remember who we were talking about
Sawinski.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Swinski. It's
This is
not as bad as
okay.
Swinski because he has a 69% zone swing rate, which is fairly nice. It's just a little bit above league average, which is right around 68%. So uh, the problem is there's just so many bodies in Cincinnati that I have a hard time, unless they move someone, getting him to 600 plate appearances. I think he's, either stuck in a platoon um, or part of some sort of rotation. Uh, So I'd say like 500 plate appearances is probably the cap, but he can do damage with 500 plate appearances. Like he's got power, he's got speed. I don't have a problem with the price at all. I mean, we're talking about a guy going outside of the top 300 picks. So
Yeah.
uh, but just not someone I land on a ton.
I'm certainly intrigued. Like if you don't want to pay some of the premiums on Cincinnati players and you want to get a piece, sometimes I just want to get a piece of a great lineup without paying the premium. That is not the case for Cincy. I'm paying for the top end guys too, except for Ellie at pick 20, which is insane. But I'm in on Steer, McLean, Friedel, Candelario, even Stevenson still, even though I am taking other catchers, but I still like Stevenson. But yeah, if you just want a cheap piece of Cincy, I think Will Benson's a good way to get some of that. And yeah, don't sleep on the 19 steals here. Again, I put him in the power focused here because I really think he could have kind of a power breakout. But he would have been a better fit in a different category. I acknowledge that. That's totally fine. But yeah, Will Benson, pick 305, totally fair price. Brent Rooker clocked 30 bombs last year in an excellent breakout season. Ended up being kind of the breakout hit on Twitter in the postseason, really talking about how he changed his game and how he thinks about hitting. Showed himself to be one of the more cerebral guys up there with some great insights, clowning some trolls in a really kind way, too. I would take a more perhaps maybe abrasive approach to some of these trolls, but he handled them much more, adult like, and I respect that. Just letting people know that hey, you don't got to come at me with this garbage. I can refute that. But 3069 really tells you what kind of team he's on here. When you hit 30 bombs with only 69 ribs, it's not going to get much better in Oakland this year. But what does he do for an encore, Brent Rooker?
It's a really, really interesting season. So, like, if you look at the splits, you go, oh, he was pretty much the same guy in the first half as he was in the second half, right? 16 home runs, 246 batting average in the first half, 14 home runs, 246 batting average in the second half. Like, he's the exact same guy, right? But then you look at the month to month. In April, he hit 353. In May, he hit 198. In June, he hit 199. In July, he hit 283. In August, he hit 228. In September, he hit 259. He was up and down, up and down. And I think that is the kind of player Brent Rooker is. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to go through hot stretches, he's going to go through cold stretches. But the beauty for him is he plays on a team that usually just has cold stretches in the Oakland A's. So he's going to continue to play until he gets traded. I do think there's a chance he gets traded at some point because he is 29 years old and
Yeah.
uh, the A's like don't necessarily need a player like that. But he is under contract until like 2028, I believe.
Yeah,
So
because he hasn't played a ton. So Brent Rooker, they don't have to, like they're not on the verge of losing him or anything. But I do think if he comes out and he's hitting for this kind of power again and backing up everything he did last year, and Oakland doesn't start taking some steps forward, then it would make sense for them
yeah,
to look into moving him, seeing a team that might need Brent Rooker's power. But
especially when they're a team that like what do they need anything with a 29-year-old, but plus like he's blocking off like Tyler Soderstrom from having full-time playing time.
yes, because Soderstrom can't catch to save his life.
Yeah, so I think there is a really good. I think Rooker is a great guy to have in fab leagues. I don't know that I want him as much in a draft and hold, but like in your traditional fab leagues, especially in your 10s and 12s, because like when he's struggling, you can drop him and kind of then pick him back up a little bit later on. But you don't have to keep him rostered.
At this price
If
point, though, in a DC, he can be a platoon guy for you, right? You can move him up and down your roster. I like him in both formats. I think because I don't need to necessarily get away from Brent Rooker. If I'm buying
Yeah,
the 25, let's say 25 homers is kind of what we're projecting. If I'm buying that, I might not get all 25 because I'm platooning him. But if I can milk maybe closer to a 260 average because I'm picking my spots right or whatever. Did he have a home road split? Was there anything to the up and down, or was it just inconsistency um, against righties specifically?
he was a little bit better on the road, uh,
Okay.
but like I mean, 255 batting average on the road with 17 home runs, 13 home runs with 236 batting average at home. Um,
So
the
maybe
hard
avoid
part,
home righties if he's got a whole week of like home righties. You take him out
yeah.
for that. Like or in a DC,
The,
you don't
the
have to go the whole week. You can just do
the
Monday, Thursday.
the problem is he has a better batting average against lefties, but he hits majority of his power against righties.
True.
So like you're
True.
kind of like if you're taking him for the power, like you actually have to just kind of eat it, I think.
So go with all the road games, but then maybe be a little selective at home at times.
Yeah, I think that
That
might
might be
happen at
how I'd
times.
play it if I'm even trying to play it like that with Rooker. I was only saying that as a potential for you, or saying that you didn't necessarily want him in a DC. I think you could still milk it a little bit and not have to just play him straight in a DC there. I think Rooker's a fine pick. Problem is though, the runs and ribbies are going to be shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I mean,
I don't think they're going to take major steps forward this year by any stretch of the
no, if
imagination.
anything, they take a step back. Like they're sap
You
out of the
can't
league.
go back from where they're at.
I mean,
No, literally, I'm
man,
not even trying to be funny. They will not win fewer than 50. There's no way. Fold the team at that point. Fold the team.
they might need to. They don't have a home in a couple of years.
Then fold it.
Like,
you cannot.
they don't
be
know where
winning
they're
fewer
gonna
than
play
50.
next year.
I know, but that would be so freaking vile. You know, the Wood and Stripling pickups, I think, are solid. Get some veteran guys in there. Obviously, their health is going to play a role into how much they can help the team. JP Sears, Paul Blackburn, capable major league guys. They got a few decent guys in the bullpen. Like, they should not be as painfully wretched
they
as they
be,
were last year. You know,
they could be, but they shouldn't be.
They could be, but they shouldn't be. Yeah. So Brent Rooker, he's fine, but make sure that you can account for the runs and ribbies if you get them. I think the power will be good, but you got to watch out for that runs and ribbies. And for real, like, as much as I like Rooker, and like I said, been engaging on Twitter with him, give me Matt Wallner instead. Same price point. Matt Wallner's on a markedly better team, more likely to platoon because he's on a better team, but I don't care. I'm definitely down for the Matt Wallner experience. The 26-year-old popped 14 homers last year with a 249 average. Strikes out a lot, 32% with a 15% swinging strike rate. So he's up there hacking, but he takes 11% walks as well. So a 370 OBP was really nice from Wallner. And he scored 42 runs with 41 ribbies in 76 games. And Rooker was doing 60-60 in 137 games. So, you know, to kind of underscore that point further there, I just much prefer Wallner. I think we could see a nice jump forward this year. I think we can get mid-20s homers out of Matt Wallner. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's definitely possible. The question is, how many plate appearances do we get? I think we're much more likely to see kind of high teens to low 20s homers, just because I don't believe in the playing time necessarily for him. He's not a good defender. He's going to be a platoon bat. Strikes out at like a 30% rate. So,
well, how much PT you got for him?
I believe I got 450.
Do you think his power comes down much from last year? Because I think that, you know, take the 14 and 254 last year for Wallner. I know I'm extrapolating here. It's not always the smartest thing, but that puts you right in the mid-20s.
I think the batting average definitely comes down, and so I think everything kind of comes down a little bit with that. Like he is pretty bad contact skills.
Mm-hmm.
72 or 72.7% zone contact is like Galloian.
It's tough. Yeah, that's a
Like,
good way to put it. Yep.
Now he very much like Gallo, like he does not swing outside the zone, but he's got a 15% swing strike rate. Like, I don't think his profile
all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's one of these guys that's trying to hit the bomb. There's no two-strike approach for Matt Wallner.
Mhm.
It's to continue taking your A swing and try to hit the bomb.
I think he's one of those guys, you know, like we were talking about yesterday. I don't really care about spring training stats, but there are certain guys I've circled, and I think Wallner should be one we have circled, because like if he shows any growth, even in spring training, because like the strikeout and walks in spring training actually mean a little bit, right? It's showing some sort of approach change. And if he's not striking out at a 30% clip in spring training, that's actually really, really encouraging for me. And, you know, again, like lineups, right? If he's going up against lefties and holding his own, like that's a really good sign.
That'd be encouraging.
As much as like right now, like, yeah, like they've got him scheduled for platooning. Like, I don't really buy our roster resources kind of projection in terms of lineup right now, because right now they've got Byron Buxton playing every day in center field. Don't believe that. Like, you know, like I think the Carlos Santana signing like crushes Alex Kirilloff, right?
I
So
think there was something about that in a recent Mining the
oh,
News,
was it?
that those two might be platooning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. Because I think that like Buxton had like you've got to keep Buxton in the lineup as much as you can at the DH spot. I don't think that they're going to let him play the outfield a lot. So like right now we've got
I think
Willie
they might have
Castro.
to
Yeah, what do you
because you
mean?
got to get these. I think they might have to let Buxton try to play some outfield because you got to get these guys in.
Kirilov has an option. So
Is
and
that
now
does he have
obviously
the
like
option of getting a new wrist?
yeah, I mean obviously all of this will work itself out because they're so injury prone that like like Royce Lewis is going to miss time. You know that Kirilov's going to miss time. You know that
Wait,
Buxton's
wait,
going to miss
wait. You
time.
don't know Royce. Don't be so negative
Like,
on Royce Lewis.
I love Royce
If he
Lewis, and
doesn't
like
rip his leg again, he's not gonna miss shit
he missed time last year.
because he got hurt. I'm saying he
Exactly.
doesn't have to get hurt this year. It's not
I mean,
guaranteed. I don't like this negativity.
it is
I
guaranteed.
don't
So
appreciate this negativity. Royce
I
Lewis is a god. I would take him at pick 20 over Ellie De La Cruz. Of course, I'm not taking him at pick 20, but
okay.
joking aside, like if you made me take one of those guys at pick 20, I would take Royce Lewis.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
That's what I mean. Obviously, I'm not taking him there, but that is Ellie's ADP, for God's sakes. Yes, you would come on, you would take Ellie over him.
I
If you
would.
were forced to take one of those two at pick 20, you would take Ellie?
I would, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I could
Because I don't think
Ellie's skills, Royce's health. You know I'd rather bet on the health than having to bet on somebody's
yeah, and
skills improving.
I'd rather bet on just the I'd rather
Mm-mm.
bet on the health. I really would.
Because here's the thing too. If the health
This
flops
is like
on
shaping
Lewis,
up to a board bet that I'm not gonna make. Like I'm not gonna make this board bet. I don't know if that's what
because
you're angling at, but
no, no,
it's
no.
not
That's fine. We don't
happening.
have to. But if Royce's health did fail in this theoretical here, I could replace him with Ellie.
That's
You're going to
true.
have to eat the 100 batting average that he's going to hit. I mean, obviously it's not going to be 100. And I like Ellie. I know I'm being super negative on him. I want him to be good. I just cannot get behind the 20 to 25
I
ADP.
I mean
It's
I
just
can't either.
killing me.
Like
And yeah, you're not advocating it either.
yeah.
I'm just saying if I had to take one at 20, it would be Royce. But you're right to
And to
bring
your
up.
point, like I have drafted Royce Lewis multiple times already. Like,
So
so
you're
like
like in his 50 ADP.
yeah. Now I got him, I think, cheaper than you normally get him, but still, like, I mean, I've pulled the trigger on a guy inside the top 75 that I am just petrified on his health. So,
Understandably, right? He's
yeah,
ripped each knee. I get it. I'm not being deluded here to think that, we'll just pencil Royce Lewis in for a $150 games. Yeah, right. No way. But anyway, Matt Wallner, he's going to platoon some. They're going to be working a lot of guys in and out. They have a lot of injury issues. I found the Mining the News thing. Carlos Santana, I think there's multiple Carlos Santanas. So his name didn't tag, I think, in the Mining the News. So I had to go dig it up. But yeah, the team might go with the first base platoon with Kirilov facing righties and Santana facing lefties. And then Jeff clipped the news piece that talks about it. So stay tuned for that. Here's the thing. Santana is so cheap that if you like him, you can still take him. Like there's nothing wrong with taking him there and just letting that sort of happen. Even if they do run a platoon with him, okay, that's fine. I mean, he's a dirt cheap pick. But anyway, about Wallner, he's going to platoon. He is a big batting average risk. Let's move
and
on to
the
Giancarlo
nice
Stanton.
thing is, just before we move on, like
Hmm.
Walner is atrocious against lefties. That's not a nice thing,
Like
but
horrendous.
horrendously bad. So like this is why I have him 450 plate appearances, is because like I just think that and he's not like I said, not great defensively either. I just think that he's kind of capped by that platoon. On the
He's
plus side,
he's got to be a
um,
straight platoon.
there are only of the other four teams in that division, there are only three total lefties in the rotations.
I will have my
So like,
article come out about projected
yeah,
lefties, but
I
you're
just
giving me some
looked it up, and
early
yeah,
tip there.
I just looked it up while you were talking, and I'm like, okay, one, I think it's the White Sox don't even have a lefty in the rotation,
We've got
and then
Scooble.
yeah, Scooble, Logan Allen, and Reagans.
There you go. Well, the funny thing is, all three are pretty good.
Yeah, so
Two
like
are
you may
studs and
not want
one's
him against,
solid.
like you wouldn't want him against those if they were, if he was allowed to. So
Yeah,
it actually lines up. Maybe I do need to bump up his plate appearances a little bit because there are so many righties in that division, especially. But I think 500 is really like a cap on terms of like or like the ceiling of the plate appearances for Walner.
I think so too. That's a good way to put it. Giancarlo Stanton, pick 320. Boy, you know, I'm not sure I envisioned the day when Giancarlo Stanton would be picked 320, but I get it. He's coming off an 89 WRC plus, still hit 24 bombs. That's why he's in this category. But he came with a 191 average. Justin, he hit 211 in 2022. So, we can't really bank on much for the batting average, but he still smacks the piss out of the ball. Hit 31 homers in 2022. Is there any sort of rebound here that has you intrigued by Giancarlo Stanton? You taking him anywhere? Or is this who he is and thus belongs in the 300s? Where you at?
So Stanton's never been like a really great zone contact guy, and to prove that point, he has never had a league average zone contact in his entire
Oh,
career. So, yeah. So, but that being said, the last 5 seasons, he has been below 80% zone contact. Um, so I think the batting averages are gonna kind of suck, and you'll get cheap power. But like I'm thinking, and then obviously there's the injury risk, right?
yeah,
Stanton just gets hurt, and they have
occasionally.
yeah, they have to DH him, 2/3 of the time because one, he gets hurt, and two, he's not good defensively. So um, I think 25 to 33 home runs in a 220 batting average is what you're getting from Stanton. I think if he didn't have this contract, he wouldn't be playing really much at all. But he's got the contract. They're going to keep putting him in the middle of the lineup because of it. So maybe at some point they just decide to eat it, which actually wouldn't surprise me. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, he's just a cheap power source that might kill your batting average.
Yeah, that does make it tough to even get those homers because of what he's doing elsewhere there, hitting sub 200 or at least very low 200s. Again, you combine the last two seasons, it's 202 in 867 plate appearances for Giancarlo Stanton, which is very scary. So,
But like you said, like he's still like I'm just gonna quote you to you. Like he still smacks the piss out of the ball. Like I mean,
so like if he blasted 35 again and hit
dude,
even 230,
dude could hit 45 home runs and it would
yes.
not shock me. I mean, we're talking about a guy. So yesterday we were talking about like usually I'm looking for above 112 miles per hour in terms of max exit velocity. Stanton's was the worst of his career last year, and it was 119.5. Like he destroys baseballs.
And he could hit
Um,
through that. Like, again, we're not projecting it, but he could power through the contact issues for a decent batting average because
yeah,
it's also worth pointing out that he has a 219 BABIP over the last 2 years, and that's pretty uncharacteristic for somebody with a career 307. He doesn't
yeah,
even have to get all the way back to that to hit 230. That's why the projections are in the high 20s homers with a 230 batting average. So I actually don't hate Stanton at this price point. And if you need power late and you're really looking for somebody who could truly spike a 40 bomb, he is that guy. So,
yeah.
and I loved him, in his heyday. So he's a favorite of mine too.
And he's dirt cheap. Like I mean,
Yeah,
dirt cheap, and not DH only. So like
that
he's
is a
actually
huge benefit.
like he is actually outfield eligible. Played 30 plus games in the outfield last year. So other guy, typically or last couple years he's been kind of DH only. But yeah, I mean, take the extra eligibility. Like he's not like an awful pick at that point.
Finishing this tier. I'm looking right now. Oh, okay. It happened while we were doing the first base preview because I know we mentioned Luke Raley during first base, and I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering like, was he already in Seattle? And it looks like when we did preview part two, that's when he was traded. So he was in the news of that episode. Um, and then funny enough, the next episode was the part 3, and that's where he was. So 2 episodes we talked Rayleigh. We talked about him over at first. We've talked about him with Seattle. I like him. You're not as big of a fan. We don't
Yeah.
need to get into it. We got other guys to
Yeah.
cover. Let's move on. I put a couple Spore faves here because I didn't know which category to put him in, and I mentioned how I forgot to put Lars Nootbaar. For somebody who's literally on every team I've drafted so far, to not put him in a category was kind of funny. And then Taylor Ward, a guy I just can't quit. You know, health has always been the issue with him. Skills are there, but 207 for Nootbaar, 237 for Taylor Ward as their ADPs. Nootbaar, again, as much as I love Evan Carter, why not just take Nootbaar and sacrifice some of that speed for a much cheaper player? He didn't quite pan out to the hype that was drummed up for him last year, but 14-11 with a 261 average, 367 OBP in 117 games was pretty good. He was undercut by health. I think he can be a full-time player and near the top of the order for a quality Cardinals lineup. I'm still obviously fully in on Nootbaar, as evidenced by the fact that he's on 5 of my 5 drafts so far. What do you think of Nootbaar?
I think it all comes down to whether it platoons or not. Like,
I know
if
we have that right now. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think he will at least drop in the lineup, but I don't know, man. Like, it's really hard because like I look, he hit 229 against lefties last year, so I could understand why they might want to platoon.
200-point OPS split.
Yeah,
Let's be fair and point that out here. As much as I like him, like that's big.
but I'm
But
I'm gonna talk up his potential while I slander another one of your former faves. Right now, they have him platooning with Dylan Carlson, and Dylan Carlson is not good at baseball. Like, it's just like, why? Like, why? Like,
I was going to say, for you to make this case, you're going to have to talk up Dylan Carlson, and I knew you couldn't do it. I knew you couldn't do it.
I can't do it. Like, it's just, now Carlson has been decent against left-handed pitching. He's hit 268 against them. I just don't think Dylan Carlson's good at baseball.
You're terrible. You're so mean.
It's true though.
No, honestly though, you look at it now. We're at 1,481 plate appearances of league average work, 99 WRC plus for Carlson, and I think the tough part when you kind of look back at everything is he really built his prospect status off of one run. 108 games at AA really turned him into like a pop-up prospect, and he hasn't really backed that up since. And so
this is again one of the reasons why, like, I don't, obviously prospect guys don't get everything right, but like the guys who are able to get eyes on these players, like they know stuff that we don't necessarily always find in the numbers, right?
Yep.
And like Matt Thompson, who's obviously a big Cardinals guy, but like he was like going to their AA games like every night of the week. And I remember talking to him about Carlson when everybody else was getting psyched on him, and he's a Cardinals guy going, "Yeah, I don't think he's good. Like, I don't think he's got power that does not play, and I think he's going to struggle quite a bit at the major league level." And so while everybody was getting hyped on him, yeah, like Matt was completely right, and I totally bought into what Matt was telling me. That being said, like he does have like a career 308 batting average against left-handed pitching, and that's in like 300 something plate appearances. So
maybe he's a short side guy, because I was looking. We also have Donovan platooning, and he was also wretched against lefties. So
I think Donovan is the guy who really is more likely to lose playing time against lefties than Carlson. I mean, the only thing that helps
than Nootbaar, you mean?
Sorry, then Nootbaar. The only thing that helps Donovan is his ability to play everywhere.
Correct.
So they can kind of just move him around the diamond. But if at worst Nootbaar is a strong side platoon player, and at best he's a full-time player, like I'll take that gamble at this spot. Like that's like that to me, especially if you're going to be leading off, against right-handed pitching in. For one of the better offenses in baseball, like, okay, I'll take the gamble. I think there's a lot of upside on Nootbaar. I think the downside is kind of reflected in the price. So I totally understand why he's been your dude.
Yeah. You said everything that I think about it with regards to why I'm drafting him so much. What about Taylor Ward? Again, somebody I've really liked, has obvious skills, health has eluded him as it has many guys on the Angels. They got some sort of curse over there. But, 1447 last year, 14 homers, 47 ribs in 97 games, 253 average. So the numbers were down a bit from that big breakout in 2022. But I think there's still a lot to like. He was still a plus bat. He'll be age 30. I think his playing time is locked if his body cooperates. We just
Yeah.
need that cooperation. But at 237, I think that's kind of built into the price, as I like to say. So I'm still in on Taylor Ward. Where do you stand with Taylor Ward these days?
Um, I think lost in the fact that last year he, struggled with injuries and stuff was that the underlying skills actually improved. The zone contact went up while the zone swing went up. So like he was being more aggressive in the zone and making more contact while he was doing it. I believe it was like a 91% zone contact. I'm double checking that right now. Yeah, 91.4% zone contact. That's fantastic. Like
I
I'm
like that.
totally fine. I think it is all about health with Taylor Ward. I think if he gets like a full complement of plate appearances, if he can get to 600 plate appearances, I think you're talking about a guy who's 25, maybe even more home runs with a pretty decent batting average. I know 253 last year is probably about what we see. So I'm thinking like 25 to 28 home runs, 253 batting if he can stay on the field. And that's the problem. Like I think I prefer him in a fab league or in a league where you've got IL spots. So that way you can either cut and move on if he is out for a long period of time, or at least stash him on your IL. But I actually really like Taylor Ward, and I think there is a little bit more upside than the ADP suggests.
Yep. Co-sign all that with Taylor Ward. Let's move on to the speed demons. Estuary Ruiz at pick 131. No shot. Jaron Duran at 162. Cedric Mullins at 148. Put them out of order. My bad. Starling Marte 223. Leody Taveras 271. Whit Merrifield 276. We discussed him at second base, but the latest news says that the deal is expected this weekend, so we can talk about that in a moment. Willie Castro at 303. Discussed him at third, but the Twins have made some moves since then. And Johan Rojas at 370. Let's start with the guys that are inside the top 200 there. Ruiz, Mullins, and Duran. Estuary Ruiz, okay, he panned out last year, okay? Credit where it's due. I was out, and you got an AL high stolen base total. So if you drafted him,
67. Yeah.
he did what you wanted, right? Like, so
Mhm.
I get it. The thing of it is, though, and I wrote him up in my busts article because, like, while he delivers the value maybe of a pick 131 relative to the dollar value, I just don't like what he does for a team build, which is to
Yeah.
say, is a drain on every other category that you need to plan around. And I know that we disagree a little bit on this. You're open to taking a guy like this on the fly. I think you need to plan to take, like, you need to go into your draft saying, I'm going to take Estuary Ruiz. And so I'm stacking crazy power early on. And then again later too, like all around him. But I want to go in knowing I'm going to take somebody like this so that I can plan my offense around it. Where you at on Ruiz? He panned out last year. Did you like? I can't remember if you even liked him last year, and then do you
I
like him
didn't.
this year? Okay.
I was wrong on him last year. I think what he did last year was exactly what you wanted him to do.
Yep.
My problem with Ruiz isn't so much that like you've got a plan or you don't have to plan whatever around him. It's one category. It's literally one category. And that to me, I mean, this is just a different version of Luis Ariz, right? And like
Yeah.
you can try to pair him with, a guy who hits for power and gets you batting average. Like, oh, I'm going to take Jordan in the second round, and then I'm going to take Ruiz, at pick 130, and then I'm set, right?
No, no, no. I think you need to take like three guys to counterbalance him. That's the thing.
And like Jordan gets hurt a lot. Like, I mean,
True.
all it takes is Ruiz getting hurt, pulling a hamstring, and speedy guys pull hamstrings. Like, and all of a sudden you have no speed. Like, you were needing 170 or 180 stolen bases, and you were expecting a third of those to come from Ruiz. You're not finding 70 stolen bases on the waiver wire. Like, it's
No,
just not happening.
they're more plentiful, but not that much more
Yeah,
plentiful.
like you might find 30, but that's still gonna leave you like 30 or 40 short. So I hate it from a roster construction
Yep.
perspective.
I just can't do it. And we talked about the old like Billy Hamilton, Chris Davis. We were talking about that stuff yesterday. Kyle Schwarber and Estuary Ruiz or whatever, but I just don't like it. At least with Schwarber, you get all of the power categories. You get the runs and the ribbies as well, along with the homers. But with Ruiz, you're just getting the SBs. He scored 47 runs, 47 ribbies, 5 homers, 254. I can't do it at pick
He
131.
also just doesn't hit the ball hard very often. He's
No,
got like a 20 or 30% hard hit rate. Like that is not what you want. Like it's just yeah, he's fast. He's gonna outrun a lot of singles or a lot of ground balls and then steal bases, but like that's really all you're getting.
I mentioned in my bust article, I'd rather just take Jorge Mateo in the post 500 pick. Now he doesn't
Yep,
steal 67, but he
he
stole
could.
32 last year. And if the playing time opened up, if some things broke his way. Now, obviously, they've got so many reinforcements there. But again, I don't need 67 from Jorge Mateo. If he
Yeah.
gives me 25 with that pick, that's fine. I'll get the other
Ruiz
40
is Ruiz is one of those
somewhere.
guys I throw out at auction for others as
Yes.
well. I'm like
Let other people
other
mess with that
someone
crap.
else will
I
soak
can't
up
do
some
it.
cash here. Yeah.
And 131 for me is way too expensive. Cedric
All right, well, that was
Mullins.
a good episode.
Cedric Mullins is next. He was on my bust article. I explicitly said in the article, I asked people not to send it to you, but then I ended up telling you. It's like one of those things where you got to you're keeping a secret from a partner, but then you end up telling him anyway because like, I can't. I'm riddled with the guilt. I had to tell you that I have Cedric Mullins there, and it's just at a point where I'm nervous that if he struggles again and is kind of a league average-ish or worse bat, replacements are plentiful, as we just keep talking about with Baltimore. And so that's my concern. He could be platooned. He could lose a lot of playing time. He's 29. 2021 will forever be the high water mark. It'll always be a great season. You'll always, have that association with him. We're never getting back to that. But I don't even know if we're going to get back to 2022 when he had 1634 after last year's 1519 with 233 batting average. It was only in 116 games, so the volume was a big reason why the stolen bases were down. But I'm just really tepid on him at pick 164 here for Cedric Mullins. Where are you at on your boy?
Honestly, I think a lot of it comes down to health. Like he missed a lot of time last year because of
Yeah.
health. Like yes, there is some platoon risk for him at this point because he has struggled against left-handed pitching. But I think he's just more likely to move down the lineup than he is to really give up playing time because he's still a really good defensive player. So like, I'm not like super worried about him like actually figuring into like a full-time platoon, especially because you look and it would be Jorge Mateo would be their platoon partner or be his platoon
Your two
partner.
faves.
Like I don't think that is necessarily really happening. To me, if I feel really, really good about his health, I feel fine about it coming in. Like I'm actually fine with this price. Like
Have you taken him anywhere yet, Cedric Mullins?
I have not. And so like that tells you something, right? Like this is my dude. Like I have a Cedric Mullins tattoo that covers the entire section of my back, right? Like it's just his face right on my back.
It's his jersey, but on your back, so you're always wearing
That's actually
a Cedric Mullins.
if I didn't actually have a tattoo like over my back, like I'd actually do that. That'd be fucking
That'd be amazing.
But yeah, like I don't think as long as he's healthy, I think he's fine. I do think there's a little added risk because he plays a really tough and aggressive outfield position. And, he's getting older, right? He's 29 and we saw kind of things start to happen. But yeah, I mean, I think 2030 is actually still in the cards. I really do.
It is. I mean, the projections really are. Bad X actually says that exactly 2130 with a 242. It really comes down to that PT. And I know he missed a bunch of it last year due to injury. I just worry that this year it could be due to performance if the bat keeps dropping. The WRC plus totals are 136, 109, 99. If that trend continues and he continues to evaporate into a below average hitter, then that's where the concern could really come up.
I think the real issue for him is less about playing time and more about where he hits in the lineup.
It's going to be low.
Yeah, I think he's gonna, especially with the amount of just elite bats that they're developing in Baltimore. Like, I don't know that you can have him lead off. Now he did raise the walk rate last year. He was at 9.5%. Like that's
It's
pretty
encouraging for
decent, right?
Mullins.
But it's still like translated into a 305 on base percentage.
Yeah.
And like that's not what you want hitting in front of Rushman um and Gunnar
And
Henderson
Gunner and Santander. Yeah.
Santander, Jackson
Only
Holiday. So
47 games leading off last year, 16 in the 5 hole, 22 in the 6 hole, and 13 in the 7 hole, and then a bunch of others scattered around. So I think he's going to be in that mid to lower area for Cedric Mullins, which will certainly hurt the run production. But again, the 2030 projections, that makes some sense. I'm not saying like he's totally worthless. Just for the risk, I ended my my little blurb on him with this. I said, Justin, if you're reading this, don't worry. I'm pivoting to another one of your favorites over Mullins, as I'd just rather take TJ Friedel at the
it's
same
fair.
ADP.
It's fair.
So that's what it comes down to too, is other guys around him. So it wasn't even fully anti Mullins. It's just at this price point, I want other players.
I mean,
All right.
if you did blind resume though, like if I like say gave you blind projection, like you're getting 20, potentially 20, 30 if he's healthy, right? At pick 150, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that is totally fine.
That's fair. But then Friedel's there doing the same thing with better batting
Take
average.
both.
Okay. Yeah, I can co-sign that. And you will take both because those
And
are
this
two
is
of your
why
absolute baves.
one of the reasons why, like I said, like I'm not worried about the depth of outfield. Like we still got another episode.
Yeah.
And we've done like we're gonna do like two like close to 90-minute episodes or three 90-minute episodes, still have another episode. Like the depth at outfield is fine.
It's wonderful. Jaron Duran broke through last year. Do you believe in it? I'll just ask that straight up. Do you believe in it? Because I didn't. I put him
I
in my bust category.
I kind of do.
Okay,
Um
talk to me about it.
so like Duran is, like there is I think not a ton of power. Like I don't even know if he's got league average power. But like
187 ISO last year was pretty strong.
yeah, like um I think he could be this year's Cedric Mullins. I really do. Like
Oh,
91% zone contact, 11% swinging strike rate. There's plenty of speed. I think there is a world in which he is leading off. I like at least on a strong side, like he's going to lead off for the Red Sox in front of Devers and Casas and Trevor Story. Like, um, I think he's made some strides defensively as well. So, like, yeah, maybe he's a platoon guy. Maybe he just plays every single day. Because right now their platoon partner is Rob Refsnyder. Like,
hey,
why?
he cooks
Like,
lefties.
I know, but like, still, why? Like, you don't need to put Refsnyder out there
But he
in
hits
favor of
lefties.
Duran. Let me see. Let me double check. What did Duran even do against lefties last year?
That I do not know.
Well, he had 289 against lefties last year. Why
Okay,
is
what was
he?
his BABIP though?
Yeah, that's probably
Because
the
that's part of why I'm a
yeah,
little bit out on Duran, is that his BABIP was sky high. And while
400.
he's a fast guy and he hit hard, I'm not putting no 400 BABIP against lefties on the table for
But
him.
here's the thing: like he makes a lot of zone contact, and
That helps.
what do I always say? When you make a lot of contact, especially in the zone, you give yourself the opportunity to get lucky, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
maybe he doesn't run a 381 BABIP, but like all the projections have him come down to 330. I don't know that I buy that. I think like 350 is probably what his BABIP should be, which means, hey, maybe the batting average does come back, but maybe it just comes back to 270. Now we're
I
talking
think
about a 270 hitter that's leading off in Boston. Like, yeah, like I think that he could be like a 1040 guy.
the only reason that you don't see a projection that high is because 350 BABIP, only 5 qualified hitters did that last year. So that's like really the top end. And in fact, looking at Bat X right now, he doesn't. Derek doesn't have anybody projected for a 350 BABIP. Same with
Yeah,
Steamer. The
okay.
max is 348. So that's actually a
He's like
pretty good
he's a
BABIP
career
projection.
347 BABIP guy at the majors. Now,
Yes,
obviously, it's not like
that's
a ton of
heavily
players.
inflated by last year.
Yeah, but like, why can't he be 340?
He can, and I will say, The 330s that a lot of these systems have for him is among the higher.
Yeah.
And so if he adds some punch, or if he adds some homers with volume, because he hit 8 homers in 102 games, I got some comments on Duran too, kind of advocating for him. So I might be changing my tune. I'm gonna be updating the busts as well, and so there could be a change, and maybe I start to
So even
jump
with
in on Duran a bit.
look at the Bad X's projection. Even with a 330 BABIP, right? So they're saying the BABIP's got to come down 50 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got a 263 batting average, 15 home runs, 28 stolen bases.
So why is he cheaper than Mullins too? I will say my first line about him was actually a little bit of an advocacy line, saying like, why I would just take Duran over Mullins at that point. By the way, I will say that.
I don't think that is a bad argument.
So yeah, maybe I am starting to turn my tide a little bit
Give me
on
all
Jarren
three of
Duran.
these guys.
You go
Give me
Durant, go
Friend,
Mullins, Friedel, Duran,
Durant, yeah.
boom.
Just
You got power and speed
in
locked
an
up for
auction, I
days.
may actually do that. Like I may just go like, okay, I'm gonna get, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good like power like outfielder early on, that like I should probably just sort by outfielders. That would
Someone
be
who just cooks power.
yeah, like someone who cooks power and batting average. I like Jordan, but
I
not
mean,
Jordan
that's what I
because
was
of
gonna
his
say.
injury.
Or Judge. Obviously, those are the higher end.
God, Brian
And
Reynolds.
batting average.
It's Brian Reynolds. Give me Brian Reynolds and give me Brian Reynolds. People who are listening to these out of order are gonna be like, "Why are you guys laughing
Why?
about
What's
Brian
the
Reynolds?"
hell's so funny about
Go
that?
back and
Go
listen to
back.
the last episode.
Everyone's Brian Reynolds.
An outfield of Brian Reynolds, T.J. Friedel, Cedric Mullins, and Jared Duran, and then like I'll take my fifth guy way later or something like that.
Okay.
And and I'm gonna be stoked. I don't know. Like I think all three of those guys, Friedel, Mullins, and Duran, are all really, really good options.
Definitely changed my tune a bit on Duran. Mullins, still pretty skeptical, but Duran, yes. Okay. Starling Marte. Comes down to health, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
It's just that simple.
Like it really does come down to health for Marte. Like he's gonna play every day that he is healthy.
He still stole 24 in 86 games.
Yeah.
Are you paying this? Is the price cheap enough that you can jump in at 223 to take the gamble?
I'm probably not paying it just because the last time he played more than 120 games was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So, like he played 86 last year, 118 the year before, 120 year before that. So, like, dangerous to me is a little bit too great. I don't have a problem with anybody paying it, but if I'm going to do it, it's got to be in a league where I've got IL spots. I prefer it in 10s and 12s where he's easily droppable if he's going to be out for 6 weeks. But like, I just don't like to invite guys on my roster that get hurt, even though Marte has been a Mason favorite forever. Like I've always loved Starling Marte.
He gets hurt all the time. He takes a lot of hit by pitches too, and I think that plays a role in it. So that's a bummer. Speaking of a show
35,
favorite,
like
yeah,
like,
that's the thing too. The age is getting up
like
there.
Especially at 35, like your speed can just drop off. Like you can just stop. Especially when you're a guy who's 35 and you're like, okay, I've got all I've got to do to get paid is just stay on the field. Like he could just stop running.
Could just be self-preservation, exactly. So yeah, there's some concerns there with Starmart. Awesome player though. I've really enjoyed his career, and I hope he can stay healthy and spike a big 130. I mean, that's not even a full season, of course, but that would be his highest since 2019. Okay, a show favorite is Leody Taveras. And things started coming together a little bit for him last year. And I know a lot of people want to push him off to the side to get Carter and Langford in the lineup. And that's where I get the not so fast, my friend. I know 98 WRC plus doesn't jump off the table, but he plays a true center field and does so pretty well. He went 14-14 last year, 266 average, 312 OBP, 421 slug. He can't come out of the gate with like a 60 WRC plus in the first month, or I do worry that the playing time could dry up, but he's still just 25. I still love Leody, and I do think that the presence of Carter and Langford lowers his price, and at 271, I'm willing to take the gamble. Are you still in on our boy Leody?
Yeah, I mean, like, he did nothing wrong last year. Like
right?
he was exactly what you kind of wanted him to be. And the price didn't go up. And the price didn't go up because, like you said, they've got so many other guys that people are going, oh well, Leote's clearly the guy who's going to lose playing time. He's an elite center fielder. Like he's like, I don't know that his job is in much jeopardy as people want to make it out. I think that
I agree.
the whole reason they let go of Mitch Garver, and didn't re-sign Mitch Garver is because Wyatt Langford is ticketed for that DH spot once he's done. So
Exactly. By the way, speed demon category was probably the wrong one for him. He probably should have been in that late power speed. He has great speed, like his sprint speed is
yeah,
incredible, but only 14 steals, 11 the year before, 10 year before that. So a classification there. You can get me on that, but again, not the biggest issue that we need to worry
I mean
about.
the problem is, and the reason why he doesn't steal so much is because he's hitting eighth or ninth. Like
Yeah,
he's like, but like he doesn't need to hit eighth or ninth. He's going to, but he doesn't need to. Like I mean, like like he's not
it's
like
just because the team is so deep.
the
On a
team is
lot of
just
other
so
teams,
good around him.
yeah, he
Talking
could be
about
top
a
of the order.
21% strikeout rate, like and hit 266 with a 270 XBA. Like this is like a decent hitter who has a ton of speed. They just don't let him utilize it. So like, yeah, I mean, I think what we saw last year is actually pretty right in terms of like, yeah, I think he's probably gonna have around 550 to 600 plate appearances. I think he's gonna, hit 12 to 15 home runs and steal 15 to 20 bases, like with a 250 to 260 batting average.
And the projections agree. They're basically putting
Yeah.
him down for a repeat there, and I'm with that. With Leody Taveras, we'll definitely have him on some. Already do have him on some teams. I mentioned Whit Merrifield, pick 276. Discussed him at second, but he's expected to land this weekend. I guess maybe we should try to move him till Monday then, so that we know where he is, because we're going to just bring him back up anyway. So let's do that. Because it didn't really say exactly where he's going to go. It said that a deal is expected. So I guess they got word from his agent or something that they're making moves on, they're going to make a decision
Yeah.
on whatever offers he has. So we'll
We're
revisit
going to see a
with,
lot of guys signing this weekend.
yeah,
And when I
exactly.
say
So
that, we're going to see no guys sign. And I'm just going to keep banging my head against the wall.
yeah, I will cry if nobody signs.
Yeah.
So we will revisit Witt on Monday. Willie Castro, 303. We discussed him at third base, but again, the reason I wanted to make sure that we brought him back up was because they've made some moves, and unfortunately, they made some moves that do kind of hurt him. But I still think he's just the super util guy, the way he was last year, and he swiped 33 bags and 409 plate appearances, kind of playing everywhere. You talked about all those injury risk guys when we were talking Wallner, right? Lewis, Buxton, even Kepler's had some issues. Correa, Kirilov, Carlos Santana's 100. Actually, he doesn't really have injury issues. He's just old because he's usually a 600 in the bank type of guy. But there's a lot of potential avenues for Castro to be damn near an everyday player, despite not being a full-time, like penciled into the starting lineup. He just dots around every day. Is that enough for you to jump in after the 33 swipes last year? Do you like Willie Castro?
Yeah, because I do not buy at all that he's not going to play close to every day. Like, there's too many injuries on the team. There's too many other guys who could platoon or just sit because they're trying to preserve them. I think Willie Castro finds his way to 500 plate appearances and steals 25, 30 bases. Like, I really do. Like, and I drafted him. You're getting a guy who's multi-positional eligible. He's eligible at third in the outfield. If you're in Yahoo, he's eligible at second base also.
He'll probably
Um,
add in season too, depending on what your
yeah,
requirements are.
yeah, exactly. So like, I think he could play. I think he'd get 500 plus plate appearances, and be very, very productive. So like, I love the ADP on Willie Castro. 303, I feel like it's just too cheap.
Totally fair. Yep, I'm with that. You need some speed. Jump on Willie Castro. The PT, I think, will just be open as he dots around the field. Johan Rojas for Philadelphia. They seem to be pretty committed to him moving your boy Brandon Marsh over to left. Now they have two great outfielders. Remember when their outfield was just awful there with Schwarber and Castellanos on the corners? Poor Brandon Marsh had to cover the entire outfield, and I forget who it was before that, but yeah, like they've now made some
Harper.
improvements there. Oh yeah, so you don't want him having to try to cover everything. But now you got Rojas in center, you got Marsh in left. Rojas had 14 swipes in 164 plate appearances last year. 302 average, was buoyed by a 410 BABIP. So let's be clear on that. He has dreadful plate skills, 26% K, 3% walk. So I don't put him anywhere near a 302 average. But can we get a bunch of steals here? Is he going to play enough? Do you believe in their commitment to him that Johan Rojas is going to play enough to get, say, 450 plate appearances and thus maybe be a 25 to 30 SB guy, even if it comes with a 240 average? Where do you stand on 23-year-old Johan Rojas?
I hope they commit to him, because not for Rojas's kind of value, but for the pitchers.
For the pitchers, yeah.
They've got a lot of pitchers who hit the ball in the air, and Rojas makes that defense so much better. No reason that Schwarber is out there regularly. So, like, yeah, I think a Brandon Marsh and Rojas kind of outfield, like, and Castellanos makes that team a lot better. Castellanos has gotten better defensively.
He has.
And, Marsh is a great defender and Rojas is a great defender. So, I mean, there's obvious risk from a guy who's only had, 164 play appearances in the major leagues. And like you mentioned, like the BABIP was unsustainably high. He's probably more of like a 240 to 250 hitter than he is anywhere close to what he did last season. But like, he still makes a decent amount of contact. There is a lot of speed, very little power. But like, yeah, could I see why draft Esther Ruiz when you draft Johan Rojas?
For real, man.
No,
that's actually a better one than my Mateo one, because I think Rojas has a chance to really play. They are committed to that defense, and their lineup is so deep that you can take kind of a zero bat from your 9 spot to get the premium defense.
Between his Double-A time in 2023 and Rojas's Double-A time in 2022, he had 618 plate appearances, 59 stolen bases.
Nice.
Like,
that is fantastic.
Like, now, obviously, that's against Double-A. Like,
sure,
it's worse
but
catching.
He skipped
It's worse
Triple-A,
pitching.
by the way.
Yeah, like
that's why you're bringing up Double-A. He skipped Triple-A to come to the majors. Rojas did.
Like, I think there is a world. And he's going to bat at the bottom lineup. Like we just said with Tavares, they may say, like, we're not going to let you steal just like unchecked because we don't want you running the outs in front of the top of the lineup. But like, I think that like the projection systems right now have him for like half a season and like 17, 20 stolen bases. I think he's probably closer to 500 plate appearances. And I think he's probably closer to 40 stolen bases.
I really think they're going to commit to him with the defense. And so that makes Johan Rojas pretty intriguing if you like the rabbit. And again, why the hell would you take Esteury Ruiz when you can get Rojas so much cheaper? I totally agree with that. This next category is titled Chris Bryant, and the participant in it is Chris Bryant.
Chris Bryant.
I didn't know where the hell to put him, dude. 286 ADP. Listen, I used to love Chris. I mean, I shouldn't say used to. I still love Chris Bryant. Obviously, his outlook has greatly changed and diminished, even though he is in Colorado. But at pick 286, I'm taking the shot because I think there could still be a spike season, even if it's just Colorado infused. I don't give a shit. He wasn't great last year. He was actually pretty terrible. 80 games of a 73 WRC plus, but he's still just 32 years old. I'm going off the length of the bulk of the track record. I know there's nothing recently to really get you super excited about Chris Bryant, but I'm in at pick 286 just because I don't think he's a terrible player. What about you?
Especially in your 10s and 12s, like I don't have a problem with it, right? Because like if he doesn't stay healthy, you just drop him. In your 15-team leagues, I'm staying away from it. I know the price isn't.
Who are you taking in 15-team leagues? You're getting away from everybody that has.
I've already got all of my outfilders from Cedric Mullins.
That's true.
And TJ Friedel and Jaron Duran. I don't need an outfielder at that point. I just don't want to invite the risk of Chris Bryant. I mean, he hasn't played in 140 games since 2021, so his entire Rocky career. He's 33. Mm-hmm. He's always had injury issues, pretty much his entire career. Even when he was a stud, he had that kind of reoccurring back issue. They've moved him off third base into the outfield. Like, I just, you know, you thank him for what he did in, you know, past seasons, and you kind of just go, I don't want to deal with a headache that he's Chris Bryant.
2021 is not that long ago.
I
And he
get
was
it.
25, 25-10. I don't know. I just think the upside's there too. I understand being mindful of the downside, right? That is very important. Excuse me. Very important to be mindful of what the downside can be on a player. But when you start to get into this price point, there's
What
going to
is
be
the upside though?
warts.
Because like he hasn't even attempted a stolen base since coming to Colorado.
Honestly,
So
I just brought up the season that he had. I don't really care about the steals, so fine, put him down for 0 steals. But
25 homers
and a
and
290
260.
average. No,
Oh,
he's in Colorado. His upside, if we're talking upside,
okay.
his projections are
All right.
270,
All right.
265.
Yeah.
So he could hit 300 easily. I tempered it at 290
Yeah.
as far as
I mean, he
upside
hit
goes.
306 in 2022. So
And
like,
it's hard to find late batting average. So that's why I do like Chris Bryant at pick
all right.
286
I can
because
understand it. I'm still not doing it, but
fair.
I understand it a little bit more. Yeah, he is in Colorado. The batting average could just run high. So if he can find a way to stay on the field, yeah, I mean, 25 home runs and a 300 batting average is, you know, you've taken that there, right?
Pretty hot
Like,
that at that
yeah,
point. Yeah. So
yeah,
again, tons of risk. Agree with you there. But I think, hey, I could get some cool batting average here. All
yeah.
right, mid to late round upside. Do you have time for this last
I
tier
don't,
here?
unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll punt it to Monday. We're gonna go fast and furious on Monday because we got to finish outfield and get to starting pitchers. But yeah, we'll wrap up there with Chris Bryant. I figured you were near the end. That's why I moved Chris Bryant up because that tier is very important.
Yeah.
But Justin, I hope you have a great weekend. Are you gonna be with Jason on Sunday?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, no problem.
We will hopefully get together again in 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And hopefully on Monday we got some moves to talk about. We'll get through those. We'll finish out the outfield and pitchers and catchers reported. Man, we are so close to games. It's all coming together, folks. But I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Take it easy.